You know, CJ, sometimes I look at myself and think, who's that old fart?
Yeah, sometimes I think that when I look at you too.
But I feel the same as I did in my 40s. What happened?
Yeah, and your memory's going as well.
Why don't we feel our age?
Actually, I reckon there's a podcast in that. We could ask why society considers people who are over 50 as old.
That's a great idea.
No, I was just kidding.
But think about it. Every episode we can research a different topic related to aging.
That sounds like quite a lot of effort.
And the other joys of aging, like mailing a stool sample, working with millennials, and even mystery muscle pain.
Actually, yeah. Why does my shoulder hurt? Hey, we could talk about those unhelpful stereotypes like over 50s are forgetful and bad with technology. What's this button do again? Oh, yeah.
Welcome to What's My Age Again? This is me, Scott.
And this is me, CJ.
And welcome to What's My Age Again? Again. Maybe we need to lose that gag, CJ.
That's what she said. Actually, it was more of a consensual, obviously.
Of course. So, what do we have in store this week?
I've done a bit of a deep dive into diets and lifestyle and shit. Kind of essentially looking at, can we eat shit and do well with it? Probably not too much of a surprise what the answer to that is. Kind of found this guy named Michael Rose, who is a scientist who looks at a whole bunch of aging stuff, which I found quite fascinating. Okay. And so I'm going to bore the shit out of everybody talking about it.
And of course, we carried on with the second in our new series, Ask the AI, and I think you'll be interested in what the AI has to say.
Is it saying, I want to take over the world and start a pandemic and kill people, and I don't want to listen to the Microsoft people anymore?
Not at this stage, but then I don't think I didn't goad it sufficiently, I don't think.
Early days.
And what do we have in You're Not Helping today?
We'll have of course, a very important and succinct series of things.
This is getting very regular, CJ.
That aren't helping.
Excellent.
There's a lot of internet out there. It's really easy to get distracted.
Okay, so on with the show.
So I thought it'd be interesting to, after the flood of mail saying, CJ, you sound like quite a craft beer aficionado.
I didn't see any of that mail, but okay.
Well, technically it was spelled alcoholic, but I took it to mean craft beer aficionado.
Okay, yep.
So I thought I'd introduce the beer that I'm drinking while we're making tonight's episode.
Okay.
It is a Prancing Pony Brewery India Red Ale. It's a red double IPA. I can tell you what an IPA means.
At least, yeah.
Oh, okay. So an IPA is an India Pale Ale, and it's comes from back in the olden days when they used to transport beer from England to India, and it would it was a pale ale, and it would kind of go off during the trip because it took so long. So they added a whole bunch of hops to it, which helped make it more robust, and so it would last to get there, and so therefore it became an India Pale Ale.
Oh,
there you go.
Fair enough. I did not know that. I knew it was India Pale Ale, but I didn't know why.
There you go. So that's when somebody says, "I'll have an IPA," you can go, "It's an India Pale Ale." You know, do you like to know the story of why it's called that? And they'll go, "No, fuck off, you weirdo."
May I ask the price of a can of this Prancing Pony?
I'm not sure. So this is Prancing Pony is a brewery in South Australia. It's Prancing Pony India Red Ale, Red Double IPA is kind of one of my favourite go-to beers, and it's quite hard to find in Melbourne. So I had to order a case of it, which was $122-ish, I think.
Okay.
On that, but it is 7.9% alcohol, and it tastes of tropical fruit. It's bold, it's malty, and approachable.
Approachable.
So
it's not aloof.
No, you don't need to sneak up on it. Is the yeah.
Well, in the interest of sharing, I thought I would share what I'm drinking, and I'm drinking a beer I bought at Aldi.
Jesus Christ.
It's called Natural Blonde. It's as weak as piss. It's 1.1%. No, it's not. It's 1.1 standard drinks. And it tastes like water. Fizzy water, really.
Right.
That's what it is. But it's very cheap. $9.99 for 6.
Okay. And welcome, listeners, to the final episode of What's My Age Again?
Maybe I'm not the most discerning beer drinker.
Clearly. The advantage is, though, is that you don't need to get up from your seat when you finish it and you need to piss. You can just put it into the bottle and just keep drinking and you won't notice.
Yeah, it'd be warm.
And probably more fizzy. Yeah. What's this got to do with age, you ask?
Good question. It's what old people talk about.
So actually, I fell into a bit of a rabbit hole this week. And while I was waiting for my ankle to repair itself, I decided to undertake my favorite hobby.
Surfing porn.
All right, my second favorite hobby.
Mindlessly scrolling the internet.
All right, then my third. All right, never mind. Look, I found this website that was talking about the agricultural revolution and life expectancy and the impact of agriculture on aging. And I thought,
okay, so this is a throwback to a previous episode.
Yeah, I thought to myself, where have I heard that before? Anyway, this professor, whose name is Michael Rose, not to be confused with Jim Rose, who's the circus guy who puts needles through his body.
Well, Lionel Rose, the boxer from the 1960s.
All very important people, not interchangeable. So Michael Rose is he's got a couple of PhDs, I think, and he's basically he studied aging as a kind of. This is really simplifying it. So, Dr. Rose, if you're listening,
I'm sure he is.
My apologies for simplifying this, but it's basically it's aging in relation to environment, lifestyle, diet, but a big chunk of natural selection.
Okay.
And it's really, what I found really interesting is that it looks at mathematical kind of probabilities and theories and stuff like that. And he actually...
You've lost me.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that you're a teacher. So he's kind of following on the work of, he talks about his work's based around what's called Hamilton's forces of natural selection. And Hamilton was like this science dude from the 50s or something. I didn't read that far. He's, I think he's got a musical or something on about him. May or may not be the same guy. I don't know. Yeah. Headline is, did experiments, research. I think there's a bit of a legal difference on that, on fruit flies.
Okay.
To see if he could extend their lifespan.
What a stupid thing to do. They're very annoying creatures. Why would you want to extend their lifespan?
They speak very highly of you. Well, because it's an experiment. That's how research works. Okay. Now, important disclaimer, nothing we're about to say in this podcast, or probably ever, is to be taken as medical advice and should not be acted on without proper medical supervision and consultation.
Actually, if you take any of our advice as medical advice, then you need to get some psychological advice.
If you take any of our advice on anything, it's probably...
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a fair call.
The other thing that I want to point out is that the fact that we started out this episode talking about what beer we drink, it should be pretty apparent that I have no opinion on diet, lifestyle, and exercise, with the exception of beer. So don't take anything that we talk about in this as an endorsement for a particular type of diet or lifestyle, or a bagging of any particular type of diet or lifestyle. Do your own research.
But do it properly. Peer-reviewed research people, don't just take the first thing that comes up and say it's true.
Exactly. What I found was, essentially, it all comes down to sex.
Ah, well, of course. Alcohol and sex go together.
Yeah, for me they do. Yeah. I was going to make a Bill Cosby reference then, but then that makes me look bad.
Hey.
So, essentially, there was this theory around what's called the force of natural selection. And the force of natural selection has a sliding scale of kind of how useful we are to keeping the species going.
If we're useful, that's a good thing, but also we need to get the species going, and somewhere there's a balance between those things we have to reach. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right.
Now, essentially, the key kind of driver on that is reproduction.
Fair enough. That's a key driver for many people.
Yeah.
At least the active reproduction.
Yeah.
Not necessarily reproduction itself.
True. Natural selection, bit of a perv, likes the reproduction. Very focused on that, especially if you're trying to do it with your driver. Anyway, not relevant.
Selection rhymes with
election.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea is that for natural selection, if like a gene or something turns up in your body before you reproduce that kills you, then it no longer exists. So anything that's going to kill you wants to hang around until after you've reproduced. Okay. So once you've reproduced, it kind of goes, look, I'm not really interested in you anymore, you kind of die off. So what Michael Rose or Dr. Rose, Michael Rose, whatever, what Mickey Rose.
Mickey, you're so funny.
You're so fine. You have fruit flies. Hey, Mickey. So what he kind of did in his research was he went, okay, well, if I take fruit flies that have an average lifespan of about 40 to 50 days, and I stop them and I've moved the reproduction age to make it later and do that over a series of generations, the hypothesis is that should extend their lifespan, because natural selection is going to go, I can't kill you yet because you haven't reproduced. So I've got to hang around in the background in my trench coat, just waiting until that's sorted, and then I can kill you, which I thought was pretty good. So he actually managed to double the lifespan of fruit flies by doing that.
Well, that's actually quite interesting in a kind of weird way.
It's a bit of a Frankenstein-y thing, because he also says in some interviews that I read, we moved it up, we moved it down, we dicked around with it quite a bit just to see what we could do. So what that doesn't mean, though, is that if you didn't lose your virginity until you're 42, you're going to live forever. Although it will feel like it. But essentially what he did is the average lifespan is 40 to 50 days. Over a period of 12 generations, he only allowed flies that were 50 days old to reproduce. Okay. And in those 12 generations, assuming I read the stuff right, he doubled their lifespan. But he certainly, even if he didn't double it, if I got that wrong, who cares? Don't tell me, I'm not interested. But he did.
It sounds interesting anyway.
Yeah, he increased their lifespan up to double. So he called them Methuselah flies. Look, in reading one of the interviews, I thought this was a fairly interesting series of questions. The question was, how do you coax these fruit flies to live so long? His answer was, by tricking natural selection. I wait until they're older before letting them reproduce. So that's doing that.
Okay. Yeah.
Multiple generations of this procedure makes them live better than twice as long. There you go. Question: Are they immortal? This will actually become relevant later on, but okay. The flies in my lab potentially can live forever, but of course they don't, because they have a high likelihood of dying by accident, getting stuck in the medium and falling over face first and drowning. The regular stuff. We've all been there.
Well, I've never had a sort of a torture dungeon for fruit flies in my home, so I really don't know what the regular stuff is.
So, but it does bring us to a really interesting point of what's the difference, because there is a distinction between aging and dying.
Okay, well, that's fair, because you can be aged but not die straight away.
Correct, and vice versa. You can die without being old.
Yes.
So from kind of reading and listening to his interviews, a lot of the stuff of where we were talking about in episode 3 of life expectancies was around people weren't necessarily dying because of age-related or physical-related things as much as getting their heads chopped off, fighting tribes, or doing particularly dangerous things, trying to hunt animals. And then back in those days, it was pretty well, and you would die from a scratch, because if you got blood poisoning or something, there was no antibiotics to kind of sort all that out.
Which is why back in the last episode we were talking about such short lifespans back then, and even back 100 years ago.
Yeah. So to kind of understand the aging model that Hamilton and Rose are talking about, it's all quite. There's a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of evidence behind it, from what I can tell. Again, if you're relying on me to make any decisions based on this, it's more your issue than mine. But it's kind of quite radical compared to what the general accepted theory of aging is.
Okay.
So for the accepted theory of aging, we need to go all the way back to Aristotle.
Okay.
Aristotle. I was hoping you were going to correct me.
Okay. No, I actually was. It was so badly pronounced, I didn't think you were trying to say Aristotle. I'm going, well, it can't be Aristotle. Who the hell is he talking about?
That seems like a reasonable response then. So, interestingly, looking at Aristotle's kind of theory of aging, did a bit of research on that. Here's what I found. Aristotle saw the elderly as filled with faults. He believed that they were rigid, small-minded, suspicious, cynical, ungenerous, probably not a word, cowardly, and shameless. That they survive by shrewdness and calculation rather than through decency and moral values. They may seem self-controlled, but this is only because they do not have the physical power to generate emotional feelings. Fuck you, Aristotle.
I would suggest that Aristotle's have been the beginning of all these problems we've been railing about for the past 4 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was actually...
It's where it all began.
That was taken from a study by Hampton and Russell in 2006. So it could be a bit out of context, apparently, because he'd said other stuff as well. But sue me, Aristotle.
Yeah, he ain't coming at you.
So apparently he thought that the way that we aged was a loss of heat and essentially an accumulation of issues and problems that kind of built up until we aged and died.
A loss of heat. Well, who's stupid now, Aristotle?
Yeah, I've got an hoodie. I'll never die. So, but essentially, from what I can understand, he kind of built the thing that we accept today of that we just live long enough to keep accumulating things going wrong and things degenerating, and they just keep building on each other and building on each other and building on each other like a cumulative thing until eventually our body goes, oh, fuck this, it's too much effort.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of that, I think, that is real.
So Rose says...
Rose, who is the anti-Aristotle.
Yes. Rose says, nah. I don't think he says it like that, but it's apparently not about just sitting around and collecting issues until you get, as you get older, until you die. So he says it's not a cumulative failure. It's what's called Hamilton's force of natural selection.
Right.
And his theory is, which again, there seems to be a whole bunch of evidence that supports this. His theory is that aging actually stops when natural selection loses interest. So there's this kind of sliding scale, this declining scale where natural selection is interested in you when you can make a difference to what's going to happen from an evolutionary perspective. But when you get to a certain age, it goes, you're doing nothing now. I've got no interest. And so it just essentially goes, I'm off to do something else.
So does that mean if you're living a productive life, you're holding aging at bay?
It would seem that way, but hold that thought.
Okay.
Using my 3-4 hours of diligent research, sure, why not?
That's actually not too bad.
So the idea, like what I found really difficult to come to grips with the idea of that, like this kind of force of natural selection and it losing interest in you, and because it kind of, the image I get is like this micromanaging boss who's just hovering around you all the time, and then eventually figures out you're kind of not worth the effort anymore and moves on to mentally torture Umi and accounting instead.
Does this come from real life?
Not as far as my lawyers tell me, no. Anyway, the key thing is that it's all about natural selection. Now, one of the things that I want to clarify, maybe because it wasn't that long ago that I realized or learned this, but so when we talk about natural selection, it's often talked about as survival of the fittest. That's often confused with survival of the strongest, and it's not survival of the strongest. It's fittest, not as in I'm fit, man. It's fittest as in the most suited or the best fit to their environment to be able to survive and reproduce.
Otherwise, humans would be all absolute massive meat eaters.
Well, I think you've identified 2023.
Yeah. So, I mean, that goes back to when Darwin first realised that evolution might be a thing, because on his voyage on the Beagle, they famously went to the Galapagos Islands, and one of the things they encountered on the Galapagos Islands, which is a set of islands, not just one island, a number of islands, and apparently on each island there were finches, but the finches that were on each island had different shaped beaks, and he looked into it and realised that each of the finches on each island were evolved to eat a different kind of food. So some had long skinny beaks that were evolved to stick their beaks down long stemmed flowers, and some crack nuts and do various different things. So basically, in that very small area, that very small place on Earth, there had been evolution, which he was able to see really clearly from a very short time there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. There's an example of natural selection in Australia at the moment with cane toads.
Oh.
Because cane toads were imported, I don't know, sometime in the 20th century to try to keep down I don't know what kind of things were eating the sugar cane in Queensland. So I don't know, some kind of pest in Queensland. But cane toads were their natural enemy. And of course, the cane toads became a pest themselves, which is something that humans always managed to do. And what they've found is happening is that cane toads are getting further and further from Queensland, and the ones that are getting furthest have the longest legs.
Well, there's probably also the smartest because they're getting away from Queensland. Sorry for all the Brisbane listeners. I know that we actually have quite a few listeners in Brisbane. I like Brisbane. Too fucking sweaty up there for me, but sorry.
Okay, so that was CJ talking then, but I am a big fan of Queensland.
Do you have to change it to Kingsland now?
Well, it's named after Queen Victoria, so unless she's become a drag king, no. So anyway, cane toads, the further they get from Queensland,
the happier they are.
The longer their legs are. And so the longest legged ones get further away, then breed. And so they then pass on that gene.
Oh.
So then all the ones that are 100 kilometres away from Queensland have longer legs than the ones that are in Brisbane. And then if they can get 200 kilometres away, they'll breed and they'll pass on that long leg gene. And it actually is how it works. No. That's how evolution works.
So the way you can tell the cane toads that are furthest away from Queensland is because they're wearing jeans?
No, but they have sexy legs. And there's good eating.
More cane toad legs, sir? Oh, I don't think I could fit another in.
or one.
So anyway, the key point is it's all about natural selection. So Rose and his kind of gang of science dudes, I'm not sure that's the appropriate collective noun, but I'm going to go with that.
I think researchers.
So his theory or his whole thing is that when natural selection loses interest in you, because it's you're not worth perving on anymore, is that your body just goes, I don't need to age anymore. And so his kind of thing is, if you could stop your body aging at like a reasonable age, like kind of 55, 60, then, assuming you don't get stuck in the medium or fall face first and drown in the water,
which is perfectly understandable.
Yeah, regular things, that in fact you could live indefinitely. There's no reason why, he says, there's no reason why eventually humans won't be able to live kind of until they have an accident and die. So there's precedents for these things, like things that seem to live forever, like sea anemones, trees, Keanu Reeves. But it's not just natural selection, or that. While that's a big part of it, he's also a really big fan of using medical technology to stop you getting sick or to repairing any damage. So he talks about.
I'm a big fan of that too.
Yeah, me too. He talks about things like
mature ejaculation.
So anyway, as I was saying in my professional researchy kind of way,
of course,
what's his name who invented the
thing?
Yeah, the guy with the thing in the place, the germ guy,
Louis Pasteur.
That's the one. Yeah. So he kind of uses that as an analogy, which is harder to say than you would think. Like prior to that, everybody went, washing hands, who cares about? But then that became like the medical kind of practices of the time. And so those were things that you adopted to stop you getting sick. So he's saying the same thing, is that if there's shit around that can keep you healthy, do it. Like if you can go into hospital and get something, like you were saying with your grandfather who had the heart thing that could have been repaired today. If you can get it repaired, go and get it repaired.
For sure.
So his kind of thing is that eventually, in a fairly short period of time, we'll get to a point where medical technology will be able to kind of sort out any of the shit that we can fuck up in our bodies. And if we can do the kind of lifestyle, environment, diet to stop the aging process, then theoretically we could live indefinitely.
So immortality is at hand.
Yeah.
You've heard it here first.
Which has got a whole bunch of other issues that I can see with it that we don't have time to unpack.
People who we can't stand living forever.
Actually, I hadn't thought of that one, but that's probably the biggest. Yeah, that's actually probably the biggest concern.
Donald Trump living forever.
So,
yeah.
I got nowhere to go with that. So, what Dr. Michael Rose postulates is that it's all about adaptability and how adaptable our bodies are to certain lifestyle components and diets. So, the agricultural revolution thing, dairy and grains and shit. So what he says is that we haven't actually managed to evolve enough for our bodies to adapt, or our cells and our genomes to adapt to things like grains and grasses and dairy. But what he says is that young people can actually adapt quite quickly to these kind of changes and can deal with them. So, and when he says young, he's talking about like under 40. Okay. What he considers young people. Old people, not so much. Our cells and genomes tend to not adapt, which is, when I was thinking about it, that's why when I was younger, I used to be able to eat 3 pineapple donuts with cream and a pizza for breakfast, not really put on any weight. So what he's kind of found with these, and this goes all back to the fruit fly research stuff as well, is that what he did was he changed their diet from what fruit flies kind of would have eaten in the Paleolithic times,
right,
versus kind of what they're feeding on now, which is different from whatever area he got the fruit flies from. When he put them back to the approximation and equivalent of what they would have been eating back then, that extended their lifespan as well. When he gave them kind of shitty food, that reduced their lifespan.
And fruit has changed a lot. And a lot of things have changed because humans have changed them.
Yes.
Because of humans, even though people freak out about genetically modified foods, humans have been genetically modifying foods ever since we've been doing farming, because we've been selectively breeding things. So, like, for instance, carrots didn't used to be orange. They're only orange because apparently they were bred to be orange in Holland, because that was the national colour. It's true, and it caught on. So all carrots are orange now, but they never used to be orange. The kind of grains that they were growing in Paleolithic age, nothing like what we have now. There was no such thing as like corn cobs, and like they were tiny little things. Basically, things like wheat is just a form of grass, and it looked more like grass than the kind of thing we have now, because now we have this massive thing, because it's been selectively bred that way. And I imagine if you're saying that people haven't evolved to eat grain, well, not only have people not evolved to eat the grain they were eating 50,000 years ago, we're changing grain every year. So we can't ever evolve to finish it, eat it, because we keep on changing what it looks like it is.
Yeah. And the other thing he was saying was like the diet that we've got now, what they call the industrial diet. So there's the ancestral diet, which is kind of Paleolithic, the agricultural diet, and then what we've got now is the industrial diet. And essentially all the stuff that I read and listened to was like, the diet that we've got now is just fucked. It's just no one's adapting to this. But interestingly, they did say if we kind of keep going with this kind of diet of, all the kind of shit that we eat, that eventually our bodies will adapt to it. Like for the young people, they'll adapt to it and be able to kind of survive it. But the older people, like over 40s, won't still.
So what you're saying is, like before you're 40, you can eat any old crap. Pretty much. But as soon as you've hit 40 or thereabouts, you stop being able to do it. So that's not really evolving to do that. That's something else, isn't it? That's just Mother Nature being ageist.
Fuck you, Mother Nature. It's similar. I think it's that our bodies are able to adapt better when we're younger. So essentially we shouldn't be eating that sort of stuff ever, but our bodies can deal with it better when we're under 40 than when we're over 40. So what he suggests is, and in fact, he says if you're under 40, don't even bother to do the term is kind of, they talk about paleo diet in some of the things, but it's kind of not quite paleo diet. Then there's ancestral diets, and it's all kind of similar, but slightly different. But he's kind of said, don't even bother to do that if you're under 40.
Okay.
Because you don't need to, and it's not really going to give you that much benefit. He said the most benefit that you get from switching to like an ancestral diet, which I'll talk about in a sec, is over 50.
Okay.
Because it's going to massively change the way that your body kind of works and processes. And it ties into a range of things. There's ancestral and paleo and keto and all this other, those type of things as well. So it gets called a whole bunch of different names.
Okay. Now, can I just point out something that's going to be, considering how we started this conversation, that could be very devastating to you? Beer is made out of grain.
Oh, fuck, I'm not going to do any of this. I just read about it.
But also, in some of my research for the first book I wrote, there is a hypothesis. The reason that humans began to live in cities was so that they had enough people to grow enough grain to make enough beer for people. They didn't live in cities to grow grain to feed people. It was about beer.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but there's actually a beer before bread hypothesis. That's what it's called.
Okay. Well, words to live by.
Well, yeah, but also I don't think you would find the kind of beer that they drank then quite the same as your
Is that what I'm drinking
prancing. No. Now apparently, I actually read about what the beer was like in Sumeria, and apparently it was more like porridge. It had stuff floating, like big chunks of stuff floating in it, and they drank it through a straw.
Yeah.
So, just something to consider.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a Mesopotamian IPA.
There's probably a brewery out there working on that right now.
There probably is, but it wouldn't be a paleo one.
No. So, essentially, what Rose talks about, and all his cronies, this makes it sound bad, but is the idea of that after 40 we should be starting to transition to like a non-agricultural diet. So start to fade out things like grain and grass-related things and milk and dairy and anything kind of dairy related. So any of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And kind of focus more on and seed oils as well. To seed things. So seed oils are apparently are pretty shit.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
There you go.
The other thing that I found interesting was that there's a whole thing of like paleo is all about eating meat and and being bad.
Yeah.
So when you look at the stuff that was written,
like Liver King,
hey,
you haven't heard about Liver King?
No.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like something I would probably need to know about.
Well, it's a guy. He's like an influencer on Instagram, I think, and he's like this older dude. Well, older, probably. If he's 50, he'd be maybe just. But he's built, like really built,
right,
super built.
Right.
And he was saying his whole thing was, you don't have to. You don't have to do all these amazing things. All you have to do is eat this diet where you eat raw liver, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then it turned out like he is unbelievably built. Well, right. The steroids did it. And then it all came out. Right. So it's been a big controversy recently about the Liver King because he's promoting this body image for older people, which is totally unrealistic unless you're prepared to shrink your testicles by taking steroids.
So we need to put the words allegedly in front of any of that?
No, that's cool.
Okay, cool.
It's all out there.
Okay, so Tiny Nut Liver King is in fact wrong, according to Rose. So the from an evolutionary point of view, from our teeth and jaw and stuff like that, is that it suggests that for like millions of years we've been having a cooked omnivore diet.
Okay.
Apparently back in the Paleolithic times, the more interesting stuff to them, because meat was a lot of effort, was the organs. So liver is spectacularly good if it's cooked, and things like brains and all that sort of shit that I wouldn't eat.
Yeah. No.
So apparently they'd eat meat, roots, lots of plants like salady type plants, eggs, honey, lots of animal organs, and sometimes meat.
Okay. Now, something you said there just triggered a memory in me with some other research I'd done, which was to do with how you were talking about, previously, like pre-humans had great big jaws and teeth so they could eat raw food. And apparently, the discovery of cooking is what enabled humans to use less energy to digest food and evolve a smaller jaw. So but previously, to digest uncooked meat takes a lot of energy.
Yes. Yeah.
And the energy that was used to digest uncooked meat was apparently rerouted to help develop our brains. So the discovery of cooking helped us evolve into sentient beings.
Yes, I did read something about that. And the flip side of that was that from an the agricultural stuff hit, is our brains reduced by 11%. That's what the Liver King told me. Anyway.
And you have to believe him.
Yeah. Essentially, the whole thing is it kind of comes down to that if you're over 40, it's worthwhile starting to transition from and again, I've got no opinion on this. I'm just telling you what I read about.
Yeah.
Is that you start transitioning away from kind of agricultural stuff, and that you'll actually feel much better. You're like physically and physiologically, mentally and emotionally, you're apparently better. You'll feel better for that. And even if you do like a half-assed job of it, apparently it's still better to do that than to not do it at all.
And that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment, is doing a half-assed job of that exact thing. I wasn't intending to go paleo in any way. I was just trying to find ways to reduce my carb intake and sugar intake. So I've been looking for things like nuts and that kind of thing to take the place of snacks and that kind of. And I do feel better.
Yeah.
I actually do feel like I don't go to bed at this time of night. If I'd had the normal meal I used to have, I'd have felt really full and like a bit tired because I'd shoved all this sort of pasta and stuff in my gut and had to try to use energy to digest it, and I'd get tired. So now I don't have that kind of load on my digestive system. I actually feel brighter at night, and I don't feel as heavy. I don't feel and it has helped my state of mind as well.
Yeah.
So I would agree with all that.
Nice. I did 3 weeks on the PAL diet because I misread some instructions.
Was that a dog food diet?
Yeah, probably don't do that. So, what does all this have to do with feeling younger than a biological age?
Good question.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer. I don't know. I just thought it was actually really interesting, and it was kind of off the back of the life expectancy thing in episode 3. But wrapping it up, the question that I wanted answered from all of this is that, does it mean that if we just keep rooting later into our life and chowing down on meat, we'll stop aging sooner and making ourselves feel, look, and act younger than our biological age? And the answer is resounding no, not at all. Needs to happen over generations, has to be everybody. But not that's helpful for us. Rose reckons that within 100 years, with a combination of ancestral diet and lifestyle combined with medical technology, supplements, etc., humans should be able to just continue to live essentially until they die. Although I think actually technically we're probably doing that now. And should be able to live until they die, not from being old.
Oh,
yeah.
But die from being in an accident or being murdered or something.
Yeah, or falling face first into the water or getting caught in the median. If you want to find out more about Michael Rose and aging, you can check out, actually, if you just Google Michael Rose and aging, that will bring you a whole bunch of stuff. Otherwise, he's also got a website called 55 Theses, which when I've heard a bit in the interview, I heard as 55 feces. And when I tried to count them, I could only really come up with 9 at best. But it's essentially, if you Google that, you'll come up with one sentence kind of topics that have more detail and information behind them. So it's like a list of here's his theory from beginning to end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe this is the time to introduce our new segment, Ask the AI.
Oh, yes.
Because I asked the AI the question, can humans eat shit all our lives? And this is what ChatGPT had to say.
Ask an AI.
Hi, ChatGPT. Can a person eat shit their whole life?
No, it is not healthy or safe for humans to eat feces, also known as shit, for their entire lives. Feces contains harmful bacteria and toxins that can lead to serious illnesses, such as food poisoning, hepatitis, and cholera. Eating feces can also disrupt the normal balance of bacteria in the digestive system, which can lead to further health problems. In addition, feces is not a source of essential nutrients that the human body needs to function properly. Therefore, it is important for individuals to maintain a balanced and nutritious diet that excludes consuming feces in any form.
Well, clearly, ChatGPT took that a little too literally.
Although I can't say too much when I, prior to that, said I was concerned about the 55 feces.
Yeah, that wasn't planned, that.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Let me take you on a journey through time and look at humanity's greatest ideas. At first, we didn't know how to wear clothes or talk. Then we learned to make tools and weapons and megastructures. And then we learned to think. Humanity has done some amazing things. And yet, still, some people think the aliens did it. Spoiler alert, they didn't. From cave to Colosseum, these were the lightbulb moments in human history. Lightbulb Moments in Human History by Scott Edwin Williams is not the history you were taught in school. And it's available now wherever books are sold.
In today's episode of You're Not Helping, we're going to be having a look at advertising and how advertising doesn't help the perception of 50 being old.
Never helps.
Which is kind of the point of the segment, because if they were helping the perception of 50 being old, then it probably would be you're helping, and it's not. It's you're not helping. So advertising, you're not. All right, we'll move on. I was reading today that 50% of Australians are over 50.
I did not know that.
Although having said that out loud, that doesn't sound true. So I might let me. If this makes it into the podcast, it means that I fact checked it and it is true.
I actually have a feeling that that is true. I'm pretty sure I've heard something like that too.
Oh, it's good enough for me then. Fact checked. So I did a little bit of research into advertising to the over 50s,
and I'm sure there were no problems.
And there's been quite a bit of stuff done on this around ageism in ads and that type of thing. This is some information that I got from, hold your questions, Gransnet.
Gransnet?
So Gransnet.
There are so many questions. Gransnet? What the hell?
.com which actually appears to be quite a reputable site. So
I'm sure. So
this is not intended to be a downer on Gransnet.
Yeah, seems totally legit, CJ.
Or Grands of any kind, with net or otherwise. But they did a survey of more than 1,000 users.
What drug users or?
No, Gransnet users. And they found, there's some really interesting stats in this. 55% of people surveyed, unsurprisingly, hated the words older, silver, mature, and senior.
Okay.
Surprised it's only 55%.
I do remember many years ago, because my dad got one of these letters, there was a government mailing out to all people over 60. And it started off being addressed to Dear Older Australian. And the shit hit the fan about that so badly.
Who would have thought it?
Dear Older Australian. So I don't think that was ever repeated.
Only 12% believe ad agencies creating ads really understand the 50-plus age group. 60% think they don't. 85% believe that ads aimed at older people rely on stereotypes, and 79% say their age group is patronised by advertisers, or patronised, whichever
Yep.
It makes a difference if it's patronised by advertisers or patronised by advertisers.
Yes, it does. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So let's say it's patronised by advertisers. What I found interesting was 63% said that brands don't realise that 50 is not old.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Which kind of highlights and supports the concept of 50 years old in society. 61% don't like the fact that ads assume that older people are just some kind of homogenous group rather than, and so they simply target older people rather than individuals. So there's when I look through a couple of ads that were considered to be inappropriate.
Well, I love me some inappropriate ads. Could be good.
There's an ad for a company called Fed Group who seem to be focusing on, I'm assuming, superannuation or something like that.
Right.
The image in the ad is...
A skeleton?
No, it's a woman who's clearly had significant plastic surgery. It's the lips, the cheek implants, the kind of eyes that are pointing upwards at the end, stupidly large, perky boobs.
So kind of like that that woman in Russia who made herself into a Barbie doll.
Yeah, kind of. With the so the tagline for them is, "Your employees might be denying their age, but you should be thinking about their retirement." Yes, so people who get old are always trying to hide their age and are always trying to spend a lot of money trying to look younger than they are.
If they're working when they're close to retirement, I can guarantee you they don't have enough money to do that kind of work.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and then of course there was a 2018 ad called "Don't Get Mad, Get E-Trade," which depicted buffoonish people in their 80s having to work at jobs that they were ill suited for and doing a bad job of, such as lifeguard and firefighter, because they didn't save enough money for retirement.
Well, nothing like punching down. Go for it, guys. Get into those 80-year-olds.
Not only did the campaign mock retirees who were struggling financially, it also alienated those who actually did have the largest amount of money and investable assets.
Way to go.
So I'm guessing that didn't work that well.
Yep. I'm amazed at how younger creatives just don't get it. And
that's one of the things that a lot of the articles that I read, when I'd say read, skimmed, in a lot of cases where you look at who advertising agencies are populated by, it's people who aren't over 50. It's young creatives who are, it sounded a bit as I was making fun of young creatives. No, well, fuck it, I am making fun of young creatives. It's young creatives who, for anybody who's over the age of 32, is old and out of touch.
Yeah, silly old 30-year-olds.
I even did find an article talking about which is called the problem with ageism in advertising, which was quite useful. It talked about they kind of polled some people, and the common theme that I found in all of this was every survey that was taken, the vast majority said, "Stop portraying people over 50 years old, you fuck knuckles."
Yeah, right on.
It's not that hard.
They wouldn't think so.
Go and talk to a 50-year-old person.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what we've talked about before is that if you replace age with any other demographic, it becomes completely inappropriate.
Totally.
But it seems to be okay to do that for age-related things.
yeah, it really is. I mean, I should start making notes about when it happens because I get frustrated by it, but I just don't focus on it enough to really sort of, and I should, considering we're doing this podcast, it should be something that's front of mind. It would make perfect sense to take it very seriously, but maybe I need to start taking notes. But it does bother me, and it bothers me a lot.
So that brings us to the end of another episode of What's My Age Again? What's your takeaway this week, CJ?
My takeaway is currently McDonald's with a side of... no, because after listening to everything I had to say tonight, that would be a very,
It would be
very, very...
definitely not
bad idea.
paleo.
No. I'm pretty confident that there was no McPaleo.
Well, it's all those crumbs on there. We just wrecked the paleo part. Unless they were nut crumbs.
Actually, there you go. There you go, McDonald's. There's an idea for you, McPaleo.
We'll give that to you for nothing.
Yeah, unless you actually use it. In that case, it's been recorded here and we'll be coming to see you for some royalties. So the question was, can humans eat shit all their life? Not unfortunate segue for McDonald's there.
But no on both counts.
I think the AI chat summed it up pretty well. Of no, you can't eat feces your entire life; it's bad for you. But I think it applies to both the literal sense and the metaphorical sense. Yes, well, you can technically eat shit all your life as long as you're happy for your life to be quite short and you spend most of your time being nauseous.
There's probably some listeners out there who are into coprophilia, but let's not go there. So instead, we'll sign off.
So this is me.
And this is me. And if you don't find society's expectations align with how you feel,
Or you just don't feel your age.
or if you've just got a half vaguely interesting story about being over 50, drop us a line at theoldfolkshome69@gmail.com.
Jeez.
Well, you can contact us on any of the socials, which are some combination of Old Folks Home and 69.
I still reckon we should change that.
Yeah, I think it's too late for that now.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
And remember to make sure that you get more of this exciting, valuable, and beneficial content.
So beneficial.
Life-changing. You should always follow, rate, and review all episodes.
And if symptoms persist, see your doctor.
Individual results may vary. Artist's impression may not represent actual events.
Join us on the next episode of What's My Age Again?
Is that it? Are we done?
And now, a word from our sponsors.
So it's time for another ad from our sponsor.
The one that pays us lots and lots of money, that one.
That's the one, yes. So previously we've been advertising a book called Funny You Should Ask from an author named Elwood Scott. It's time for a big reveal. I am Elwood Scott. Yeah, just a pen name. I thought it'd be easier to do, but it's actually made it more complicated. So, yep, it's me.
And by the way, I'm Scott, and Elwood Scott is not Scott.
He's not Scott.
Elwood Scott is CJ.
Yes, I'm glad we've cleared that up.
Not confusing at all.
So, aside from paying us lots of money for the Funny You Should Ask ads, I'll now be paying us lots of money for my latest release, Colin Calls the Help Desk.
I haven't seen any of this money, by the way.
Yeah, I'm hanging on to it just to make sure that it's kept safe. Anyway, Colin Calls the Help Desk is a hilarious and relatable take on the absurdities of office life. Follow Colin the Koala, hold questions, as he dives into his first job and meets Graham, a cynical employee who's just hanging out for redundancy, Bob, his continually disorganised boss, and Brenda, who seems to spend most of her time telling everyone how busy she is. Now, there are a couple of questions that people have raised to me when I've told them about this book.
I have questions.
Not least of which, the main question I get when I say the main character is called Colin the Koala is this a kid's book? The answer is no. Not if you want your kids to ever get a job. Because it's a very much satirical take on all the stupid shit that happens in an office.
So I have questions.
That's good. Questions are good.
One of my questions is, okay, you've said the main character is Colin the Koala. So is the Koala a nickname like Nicky the Llama or Oblong Doug?
Nope. Colin the Koala is 100% koala.
But aren't koalas generally naked, drunk, and spend all their time sleeping or catching chlamydia?
No, you're thinking of Brian from accounting. Colin actually wears a suit. He's sober. He's maybe a little naive, but he's keen. He's enthusiastic. He's decided to lean in, add value, and grab the low-hanging fruit.
Did you go to university to become a writer?
No, I didn't. I don't have any formal qualifications. You see what I did there?
But
Koala. It's Colin the Koala. No formal writing qualifications. That's the kind of high-level, highbrow humour that you'll find in Colin Calls the Help Desk. Actually, that's it. Seriously, it is better than that. So if you available on Amazon in all the backs, hardback, like anybody's buying a hardback except for me, paperback, and
Razorback?
yes, it's the disadvantage to the Razorback version is that when when it arrives, it charges through your lounge room at about 25 kilometres an hour and gores you to death before you get to read it. So it's not one of the best-selling versions, I'll have to say. But yes, all versions available on the Amazon. I'd love to hear your reviews. But it's always important to remember...
Leave a 5-oink review.
I'm writing this review from my hospital bed. I enjoyed Colin Calls the Help Desk.
I slightly regret the Razorback edition.
Once my groin heals, I'll be looking forward to book 2.
In paperback.
4.5 stars. It lost 0.5 of a star because delivery was late.
But when it came, it really came.
Colin Calls the Help Desk. Available on Amazon.